right, Naomi. So today I think we're talking about the stages that our plants go through. So just kind of covering start to finish with some of our plants. And I know we were going to start with the first stage, which is seeds. We're going to have some seeds in our hands here. And so starting from something this small, and then for our seed phase, what's important when you first start your seeds?
Yeah. When I think about seeds, I like to think about the soil quality. Like this, for example, is really beautiful.
Really rich.
Something's nice and dark and soft, luscious. This is going to be a perfect medium to start your seeds in. So we want to think about, do we have good soil to put it in? Do we have water, which are things we talked about before? And then light.
Right. And so for our seeds too, I know I always like to remember that the point in the germinating phase when you have your seeds is that they need to create roots, which are under the surface,
right?
Which is really important, even though we can't see it. It's happening.
Yeah. You totally wonder, like, did I do it right? Sometimes it takes 7 days, sometimes longer, before you even get any leaves above ground.
And then once the wait is over and you see something like these guys with the first leaves on there, you know, you at least got it seeded right.
Yeah.
Success in that phase. And then once this is happening, then we also hope that there are roots underneath that surface, like these guys. Because this is what we call a seedling. Now it's a small plant that gets ready to go into the ground. And when we take it from a small space to a larger space, we give these roots room to spread out, because the roots need to spread out so that they can support the plant spreading out. And I think a lot of times we think about the size on the surface, but not the size underground, which is another reason we consider spacing. We don't want our plants to be too crowded, so our roots all have time to spread out. And so one good way to know if it's time to transplant your seedlings into a bigger space is to look at the roots. And then when we see something like this, we know that this guy is definitely ready for a larger space, because all of the roots, this a lot is root bound. So all the dirt is held together. Like, this dirt isn't falling off of here because the roots have locked it all in place. So these roots definitely need to go into the ground where they can spread out wider and have more space to support this plant getting bigger.
And something important that we were talking about too is that when you move the seedling into the ground or into a bigger pot, you want to make sure that your soil is loose so that it essentially gives room for the roots to spread and dig and move. If you put it in a really hard ground that's dry, it's not so comfortable. It can be really challenging for them to really get settled. So the roots are really kind of the foundation of the plant, and you want to set them up for success.
So, Naomi, could I just drop this just like this in the ground? Would I just dig a little square and drop this guy in?
Ideally we wouldn't, just because you can kind of mix it up just a little bit so that they can kind of get a head start on.
So we want to spread this out a little.
Now in this plant family, we usually don't like to disturb the roots because they can be really sensitive to transplanting, but because this is so tight, I definitely would open it up a little bit so that it can establish itself in the ground. And what's important getting it into the ground and getting it established is that it makes a plant that's able to defend itself a little bit better against pests and disease and these kind of things. So you want to make sure your plant stays nice and strong from the transplanting phase into being in the ground.
So then once we get into the ground and these plants get bigger and we have a mature plant, then our considerations are a lot of the same things. Water, sunlight, soil, and making sure all those things are healthy, as well as, I know I did this a lot, and we saw this with the squash, just inspecting like bugs and stuff, and seeing if there's anything that might be attacking the plants, and also watching our plants to make sure that they don't overgrow or go past the time that they need to be picked off the plants or start to drop off and die.
I think the most important thing is just like being really observant. So you can look at a plant and say, okay, maybe these leaves aren't as green as they could be. Why is that? In this case, it's usually because the plant is too big for its cell, for its little spot, and so it needs more space. And getting it into more space will usually give it more nutrients.
Right.
So it's just being really mindful, okay, is the color of the leaf changing? How is it changing? Does it seem like there's something on the plant, a bug, or maybe spots, or the leaves are falling? And does it look like it's been eaten by somebody, not me,
Right.
by another creature? And so I think just asking yourself questions about the state of the plant really help keep a mature plant going.
I do this a lot, especially in our hotter months when we're not getting a lot of rain, is looking at my plants to see, you know, when we put a plant in the ground, if it's standing up straight, and the next week if it's leaning over and drooping, there may not be enough water.
Yeah, and I think too that's important is like the stages of the mature plant can look like once the plant's in the ground, then it will start getting bigger true leaves usually,
right.
what you can easily identify it as. Then it may start to flower depending on what type of plant it is.
We got some flowers.
Yeah.
This guy.
And once you see the flowers, then that's a pretty good indication that fruit will follow. So once you see a flower, then it's good to check really often to see, okay, did the fruit come? And then if it's developing, then you keep an eye on that, and then you make sure to harvest it at right when you want it, at the right time.